I'm going to talk about some of the unsung heroes of Sprint Cup, Nationwide, and to a lesser extent, trucks on the NASCAR racing. Now, let's get down to business. If you think I picked 4 teams at random, I went to the crew list off J-Ski. And so if you think of the 2 car, you think of Brad Keselowski, you think of Paul Wolfe, you think of Roger Penske, the owner. Now, but do you ever hear the name Rich Johnson or Don Collins? You think of the 5 car, you think of Casey Kane, you think of Kenny Francis, crew chief, following around, you think of Rick Hendrick, the owner. Ever hear the name of Jimmy Parrott or Dave Bradney? I wonder if that Jimmy's in relation to Buddy and Todd, by the way. Don't know that for a fact. But you think of the 48 car, Jimmy Johnson, Chad Knaus, Rick Hendrick. Do you ever hear of the name Kyle Bazell or Chad Cohn? You think the 88 car, you think of Dale Earnhardt Jr., you think of Steve Letarte, you think of Rick Hendrick. Ever hear the name Scott Denton or Andy Taylor? No, it's not the fictional sheriff from Mayberry, the old Andy Griffith show. But the reason I'm doing this, the Sprint Cup, this is what the first 5 weeks look like. I'm doing this vlog on the 14th. They start this weekend in Daytona, then next weekend in Daytona. Now, hopefully the trucks can stay down there. If they don't get a car tore up, they'll have 2 cars with them. If not, if they get one tore up in the Bud Shootout, the 19 teams expected to run, I'm sorry, it's not the Bud Shootout, it's not the Busch Clash anymore. It's a Sprint something or another, but that's a moot point. But then next weekend, a week from Sunday, let's see, it's the 14th, 17th. So I believe it'd be 6, 7, 8, I believe it's the 24th, but don't hold me to that for the Daytona 500. They run the Daytona 500. And Nationwide follows the same early season schedule, by the way. The next week, they are in Phoenix, Arizona. Now, you really complicate matters if you get a rain out at Daytona and you run Monday night and run into the wee hours Tuesday morning like last year's did. Hopefully that won't happen. The next week, they're in Vegas, Las Vegas, Nevada. Some teams will actually send cars out on separate trucks to Phoenix, swap out cars at the racetrack or somewhere there in the Phoenix area, and send them on to Vegas. Then the next week, all the way back to Bristol, Tennessee for a Sunday afternoon race. Then the next week, back to Fontana, California before they have the off weekend. These unsung heroes are the transport drivers who transport these cars, and I'm not a trucker, never been in the trucking industry, so I'm not doing it because of that. But I don't think the average fan realizes how hard the transport drivers work. The drivers only take 1 car on the racetrack at a time. The truckers, they have 2 cars in that rig at all times. All kinds of parts, spare engines. They take so much stuff to the track. A lot of them have, I believe some of them big pit boxes, there's a company that hauls them. I've actually watched them load them up after a race at Atlanta. But it's just a little shout out to what I think are some of the hardest working people in NASCAR, Sprint Cup, Nationwide, and even to a lesser degree because they have less races and more time between races. For instance, after Daytona, the Camping World trucks don't run until sometime in April. And the drivers, most of the crews, they fly. They have airplanes that goes to the tracks. A lot of the race day pit crews are falling in on race morning. It's just been my little shout out to the hard working guys of the trucking industry, guys and gals of the trucking industry who haul these cars up and down the road. You know, you'll occasionally see them. Where I live, I can see them when they go to Indianapolis or Michigan or some other tracks. Of course, Kentucky Speedway is only about 70 miles from me, but just a little shout out to some of the hardest working people in NASCAR.